Y'all, it looks like Malcolm Jamal Warner's wife just got threatened, and the name tied to it is the same person people are now accusing of having something to do with Malcolm's death. She's not a suspect, she wasn't there, but now she's the one being warned. And as you guys probably know, Malcolm was trying to expose some disturbing things in the industry months before he tragically passed. And now that the same person he was trying to expose is allegedly sending threats straight to his wife after Malcolm's tragic passing, now she's canceling appearances and pulling back from everyone because if the person behind Malcolm's death is trying to shut her down too, then she could be next. So does this mean that she knows something that she's not telling us? And what secret message was Malcolm trying to tell us before he passed? Let's break it down. Things took a turn that nobody saw coming, and what started out as a tragic drowning is now spiraling into something way more sinister, and at this point, nobody believes it was just an accident. The timeline is messy and the stories don't match, and the people closest to Malcolm are suddenly going quiet when they're speaking up was just days ago. Now at first it seemed like the conflicting eyewitness reports were going to be the biggest red flag here, but that was nothing compared to what's happening now, because someone close to Malcolm's wife is saying that she's been getting threatening calls, not from trolls, but from someone warning her to keep her mouth shut or else. And this is where it stops looking like just a tragedy and starts to look like a full-on cover-up, because why would Malcolm Jamal Warner's wife be getting threatened into silence if this was just an innocent freak accident? It doesn't add up. And what's even more chilling is who's allegedly behind it. This isn't just some random person lashing out in grief. This is someone who had power and reach, and for whatever reason, they seem to believe Malcolm's wife is holding on to something, some kind of proof, some connection, maybe even receipts that could expose them. But not just for what happened to Malcolm, but possibly for way more than that. And if they're willing to go this far to keep her quiet, then the question isn't just what she knows, it's why they're so desperate to hide. So who exactly is this person sending threats? And that's the part that Malcolm's wife hasn't said out loud, and that silence alone is telling. Whatever was said to her clearly shook her, and she hasn't dared name names, but according to someone close to the situation, she's dropped a few quiet hints. And if those hints are pointing where people think they're pointing, the person behind this isn't just powerful, they're at the very top of the Hollywood food chain. And as you guys probably know, when fans start pointing fingers like this, it's usual names that pop up. You know, Jay-Z, Diddy, Beyonce, even Clive Davis gets mentioned in those deep industry conversations. So here's the twist. The same insider claims the person threatening Malcolm's wife isn't on the same level as them. They're above them. And considering how untouchable people like Clive already are, it's not hard to see why she's scared for her life, if it was him. Because if this is someone even they answer to, then she might be up against the Hollywood machine. But when you really look at everything, it starts to make sense because the details surrounding Malcolm's death don't just seem suspicious, they feel orchestrated. From the way the story broke out to how quickly the narrative was locked in, and it looked like someone was working overtime to control the public version of what happened. And that kind of media control doesn't happen unless someone with serious power is behind it. But think about it, the red flags were there from the beginning, the inconsistencies, the initial silence from eyewitnesses, and the rushed statements. It felt less like a tragedy and more like a cleanup job. And now the threats aimed at his wife, it's starting to look like this wasn't just about hiding the truth. It could have been about erasing it completely. There were so many red flags surrounding this case that it's almost impossible to untangle all of them, but one detail that's really starting to get attention is what happened at the scene. Because according to a licensed doctor who was actually there, he ran toward the chaos when he saw the crowd forming. Red Cross responders were already performing CPR, but when he identified himself and tried to assist, they refused to let him help. He claims the CPR wasn't even being done properly, and before he could push further, the ambulance arrived and took Malcolm's body away. That alone had people raising eyebrows. But it gets even weirder. An autopsy was done immediately, and in just a few hours after the news of Malcolm's death broke, the autopsy results were already out and circulating publicly. If you know how these things usually go, especially with high-profile deaths, you know that doesn't happen. Autopsy reports typically take weeks to complete, but for some reason, this one was ready to go within hours. And if that doesn't scream controlled narrative, then I don't know what does. Costa Rican authorities were quick to call it an accident, and the whole thing was wrapped up in less than 24 hours. But fans weren't buying it. For starters, they said that Malcolm was swimming with his daughter when a rip current pulled them under. That's the version that got pushed out first, but quick, tragic, and just clean enough to shut down questions. But almost right away, things stopped adding up. The timeline fell off, witnesses started contradicting each other, and the key details about who was actually there and what happened in those final moments just kept changing. But then they said no, the daughter was never in the water. The next thing we know, they released a statement saying that she was never in the back at all, writing, "They interviewed Malcolm's family, but they also weren't there at the time of the accident." Then the story changed again. Suddenly, Malcolm wasn't swimming with his daughter. He was swimming alone, and out of the nowhere, a stranger supposedly jumped in to save him. But now they're saying that this man didn't jump in to save Malcolm, but they were supposedly swimming together the whole time. Then the story has changed again, and this time they're saying that Malcolm was with a family friend. But here's the thing. No one knows who this man is. There's no photo of him, no press statement, no interview, not even a confirmed name. Now, for someone who was supposedly right there when Malcolm died, his entire existence is a mystery. According to USA Today, a second adult man who was involved in the same incident as Warner and reportedly attempted to save him was transported to Costa Rican clinic in critical condition on Sunday, July 20th. But just one day later, the LA Times reported something totally different. They said the man, described only as a 29-year-old Nicaraguan, made a full recovery and was released from the hospital. And there was no update on his condition in between, no clarification on who he is or how he's connected to Malcolm, just a sudden recovery and a quiet release and total radio silence after that. And this is the next part that couldn't get even more suspicious. Remember that doctor we mentioned earlier, the one who tried to step in and help Malcolm? Well, it looks like he spoke to US Weekly, and what he said raised even more questions. According to him, I was about 200 meters from the incident at Playa Grande, spending the day on vacation with my partner. There were very few people on the beach, and the sea was rough. When he got to the scene, Red Cross responders were already performing CPR on Malcolm. He immediately identified himself as a U.S. certified trauma surgeon, thinking he could step in and help. But they wouldn't let him anywhere near Malcolm. And it didn't stop there. According to the doctor, 2 more tourists ran over moments later. Both of them were doctors. They made 3 medical professionals on the beach all ready to assist, but none of them were allowed to get close. And when 3 qualified doctors are standing right in front of you offering to help you in a life or death emergency, why would you shut them out completely? Well, now fans are starting to connect the dots, and the theory that's gaining traction is that the first responders may have been in on it from the very beginning. According to speculation, the reason they wouldn't let any of the doctors help is simple. Those doctors would have been seeing something they weren't supposed to see, maybe signs that Malcolm didn't drown, or maybe signs that he was already dead before he hit the water. There's a conspiracy theory making rounds that Malcolm was pushed into the ocean after he died, just to stage it as an accidental drowning. And honestly, with the number of holes in this story from the start, it's not hard to see why fans are suspicious. But now things have taken an even darker turn with Malcolm's wife allegedly being threatened into silence. And if that's true, we have to ask the real question. Was Malcolm caught up in something way bigger than any of us realized? Was he in over his head in more ways than one? It looks like it's not just who's threatening Malcolm's wife. The real question is, what exactly does she know that has the most powerful people scrambling to shut her up? Because when you strip away the staged headlines, the shifting timelines, the mysterious man who no one can find, and the silence that's being forced, this doesn't feel like a tragic accident anymore. It feels like a cover-up with layers that we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Now, some people are upset and saying that this is too soon to be talking like this about Malcolm's passing. But if something crazy went on with your death, wouldn't you want someone to ask questions to? And if the person behind these threats really is as powerful as insiders are claiming, then Malcolm's death might just be the beginning.